When I play our game and then talk, I'm trying, Jennifer.
Rip City, what is going on? We missed yesterday on purpose, intentionally, because the first game is tonight. As we're recording, it is halftime. We decided we're gonna hop in. This is actually gonna be a two-parter. You're gonna get me right now with Fawad and Sean, and then you're gonna get Fawad and Sean once the game's over. I'm not gonna be able to come in at that late time, so we're gonna kind of have a little two-parter podcast here. So part one of the podcast is starting now. Sean, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great. Blazers are back, came out strong, and tailed off a little bit in the second quarter, but overall, I'm just super happy to be watching again.
Yeah. It started out real hot, which we're gonna get to here in just a second. But we got Fawad here as well. Fawad, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good too. I was so excited to watch the game. Last few minutes have been a little iffy, but overall, I haven't been this excited for a season in I don't know, 20 since 2021, 2020, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, really, this is the. I think we got a good taste of some fun basketball in the preseason. We got to watch some enjoyable basketball, and we were excited to see it carry over into the regular season. And honestly, the first quarter was an enjoyable first quarter. And
Most of the
and
first
then this,
quarter was.
yeah, most of the first quarter, and then it kind of started to die out a little bit. But we're gonna hop into that in just a second. But first things first, because it is the start of the NBA season. Actually, I think last night was technically the first night. Um, we also had one of, for the most part, I think a lot of people's favorite Blazer of all time, Damian Lillard, also had his first game of the season, and boy, oh boy, did he have a good game up until the fourth quarter. He didn't do from looking at his stats, because I stopped watching once the third quarter ended. He didn't do much after the third quarter, but I mean, he finished with 30 points. He had 9 rebounds. Um, he was hitting threes. I mean, I think he shot 50% from threes last I checked. I don't know if he shot any more in the fourth quarter, but yeah, Fawad, I know you were watching that game a little bit. How did it feel watching Dame?
Yo, it was crazy. I was having flashbacks to his time with us. It felt like classic Damian Lillard, his Dame time. Unlike last year where he was super inconsistent, and even when he did play well, it didn't feel the same as Blazers Dame. Tonight felt like Blazers Dame. He was the guy we watched for 10 years. It was so fun. The shots he was hitting were crazy. He had a couple good passes too. It was just, I don't know. I had nostalgia over it. I was just so excited. Every shot he made, I was just screaming. It was so fun.
Yeah, I mean, Dame is in a whole nother level of basketball player, and you can definitely tell the difference in not having him and having him, and seeing him perform well with the Bucks. Sean, did you watch it at all?
I saw a little bit of it. I saw Dame kind of go off for a while, and it was fun to see a guy just absolutely take over a game like that. I miss having that in Portland. It's definitely been, a couple years now since we've seen that, and God, I just miss the guy. Him when he's on fire is, I think, the most electric player in the NBA to watch. He knows he's on fire. The whole stadium knows he's on fire, and the other team can't stop it. So, nothing but love to Dame. It's so fun to watch him go off like that, and I'll always be a fan.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely said it so many times in the dwindling years that we kind of felt like something might be happening. We kept saying, we can't take this for granted. We have to enjoy what we have, because it's not going to be forever. So seeing it again, it just kind of digs at you a little bit more, like, damn, we used to have that all the time, and was so enjoyable to watch. But we're here for the Rip City Portland Trailblazers podcast, not the Damian Lillard Milwaukee Bucks podcast, even though we love Dame. So we're going to hop in right now to game one. It's halftime. We are losing 62-50. We are down 12 points. The first quarter was a really competitive quarter. We actually ended the first quarter tied 21-21. So, Fawad, first right off the bat, what was your thoughts in the first quarter alone?
The first 6, 8, even 10 minutes of the first quarter were so fun. I was having the time of my life. Every single person was playing well. Denny was pushing the pace. The pace the entire quarter was like great to see. Everyone was just running so many fast break points. But yeah, Denny played great. Anthony Simons was going off. I think he had like probably like I don't know, 7 points in the first quarter, something like that. Klingon came in, he scored, he had a block, that was fun. Aiden played really well in my opinion in that first quarter as well. So everyone was just playing good, and it was fun to watch. Warriors weren't playing good, so that made it extra fun. So it was a very good start to start to the game and start to the season, and I was really excited for it. Kind of slowed down towards the end in near the end of the first quarter, which carried into the second, but I guess we'll get to that in a second. Overall, I was really excited and happy with what I saw.
Anything you saw, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, shout out to Chauncey for running the starting lineup he did. I thought he was going to kind of pigeonhole Scoot in some ways, and I was really encouraged to see him bringing out a bigger lineup with Tumani and Denny at the 2 and the 3 spot. It feels like for years I've been watching these 3 guard lineups and being undersized in the backcourt, and so it was really fun to see those guys not only be out there to start the game, but also deliver. The tempo and effort was excellent in my opinion. We were getting out in transition and you could tell they put a huge emphasis on running, which I thought was really effective early on. You know, from a talent perspective, the Warriors have a bit more talent than us, so I came in with low expectations. So I was just really encouraged to see a lot of the young guys playing hard, playing well. I thought Denny fits in really well. I could already tell he's going to be the classic kind of guy who his impact is going to be hard to measure on a stat sheet because there's so many times he plays good defense, he's in the correct positions, makes a good connective pass that'll later lead to a bucket. So, yeah, there's a lot to be excited for, especially in that first quarter. That was excellent.
Yeah, I mean,
Really quickly,
honestly,
sorry.
yeah, go for it.
I'm glad you brought up the starting lineup because we talked about that I think in the last episode, and I said we should go with Tumani at the 2, but I thought we would go with Scoot, and I think both of you guys also said we would go with Scoot, and I was really excited to see that Tumani did make the starting lineup. I think he definitely earned it, and he fits so much better. Like Anthony Simons with 4+ defenders is a great lineup in my opinion.
100%. And you really could tell the start of the game, the first quarter, the defensive intensity that we had was so high. They were making plays, they were rotating, they were moving around, they were getting their hands in the passing lanes, they were causing issues. I mean, I said it in the last podcast. Tumani reminds me a little bit of Wesley Matthews. Like he's gonna have that impact where he just makes these like plays that you're just like so excited. He brings feel to the team, to the crowd. Like he makes all these little plays. I mean, he got a steal one possession. The very next possession, he's got a charge. Like it's just like I'm so excited to watch Tumani. Like this dude, we are so lucky to have him. I think that I don't know if I mentioned this in the last podcast, and maybe the last podcast might have even been when I said this, but I think it's official that Scoot listens to the podcast because the last preseason game and then for most of this game, he's been real aggressive going to the hole. He's been trying to get you know, he took off from like the free throw line at one point. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what he was doing. He wasn't nowhere close.
He
but
took off from a little bit too far.
Yeah, and he did it twice. He was a little bit closer the second time, but like that's the kind of stuff that I want to see. I want to see him be aggressive. I want to see him just go into the basket. There was a couple times he was a little out of control, but for the most part, that's just what I want to see. I think looking at his stats right now, he's shooting 3 for 9, so he's got 8 points, 4 rebounds. So I'm excited to see Scoot keep doing what he's doing. But the most important thing is Tumani. Just I'm so excited for him. Like Sean said, Denny looks great in the first quarter, and like Sean said, he is going to be one of these players where not always does his stat sheet show the impact he made. He plays great defense. He puts his hands straight up. He's not drawing. He's not causing fouls. He's just playing good contest defense. And then you have Jeremy Grant come out and hit a couple tough shots right to start the game. It's going to be a fun team. We keep playing the way we played in that first quarter defensively. It's going to be a fun team to play. Now you get to the second quarter. things kind of unraveled a little bit. Buddy Hield went off a little bit on us. I think Buddy Hield has he hit
14
four
points.
threes. So yeah, he's got 14 points.
Yeah, 4 for 6.
The Warriors have Curry and Clay, and then they trade Clay away only to get another great 3-point shooter. So you're not really you can't really can't help off of Buddy Hield now. So what was your thoughts on the second quarter?
Sure. I'll start off with the positives. Like you said, I'm gonna quickly repeat what you said, but Scoot was more aggressive, even though he did seem a little bit out of control. And his finishing wasn't great, but at least he was getting to the rim, and it seemed like he was getting there with ease, pretty much. It's just he wasn't finishing when he was there, which I guess is a step in the right direction. He hit a jumper as well. It wasn't a 3, but he hit a jumper, so that was good to see. It might have been in the first quarter, actually. I'm not sure. But Tumani also, he's the only guy tonight in this first half so far. He's hit 2 threes. I think he's 2 for 2. The rest of the team is like 1 for I don't even know, 14 or something like that. It's rough, but Tumani's playing well. He's he won't, like you said, he's not always going to show up in the stat sheet, but at least those 2 threes are there. He's also playing really good defense. He's been guarding Steph a lot, and Steph is, I think give me 1 sec. I think he's 1 for 7. Yeah, he's 1 for 7. Unfortunately, he's such a good player that he's still finding ways to get everyone else involved, and he has 7 assists, and I feel like every single one of those was to a 3-pointer too. So that's a little bit annoying, but his one-on-one defense on Steph is definitely very good, and I think it's noticeable that Steph is kind of struggling to score a lot of the time with Tumani on him. But yeah, I think that's pretty much the highlight of the second quarter. Other than that, it's been pretty rough. We've gotten a couple okay looks, but generally I feel like their defense is pretty good. We're kind of struggling to get looks. We're trying to work it inside, so I think that's good. I think we have the right strategy, in my opinion. It's just they're playing good defense, and we're missing some of the good looks that we do get, which it happens. It's life. It's basketball. I don't think there's anyone that's actually playing bad that I'm kind of frustrated with or anything like that. It's just they're kind of outplaying us at this point, and our shots aren't falling. I think that's at the end of the day what the problem is right now. We'll see what happens in the second half.
Yeah, and I'm not one to say the refs are killing us or anything. There have been a couple calls that were questionable. A little physicality, which Draymond Green gets away with a lot, but there's a little bit of physicality that I think had it been the other way around, it would have been called. So I'm not blaming that as to why we're losing, but that is a little bit of a factor. There is some physicality that's not being called. I wonder if I can. I'm gonna look real quick. I just want to see what the.
At least he got a tech this time though, so it's.
I got a good laugh out of that.
Yeah,
Draymond tech on opening night is a gift.
Draymond Green game, he's gonna get a technical foul. So it's not basketball if he's not yelling about something. and what he was yelling about was most of I'm not. I hate Draymond Green, so that dude just pisses me off every time I see him. But Sean, how about you? What about the second quarter?
Yeah, the Draymond tech gave me a really good laugh. I really enjoyed that. Just it felt like a basketball is back moment. So I enjoyed that. The rest of the second quarter didn't love. Felt like the pace slowed down significantly. I thought we were having a lot of success in the open court. And in the second quarter, it felt like we got away from that a little bit for whatever reason. And in our half-court possessions, we weren't as successful. I still saw guys trying to do the right thing. It felt like we were attacking the basket with less success, but I still would rather be doing that than settling for jumpers. And I didn't see any prolonged ISO ball, which we could get into last year pretty frequently. It felt like the ball was moving a little bit more fluidly. And so, those were all good signs of things to come and signs that some of the stuff Chauncey's been preaching might be in the correct direction, in my opinion. But overall, the Warriors, like I said, they're a more talented team, and they're hitting more shots than the first quarter where they played, pretty poorly and missed a lot. And so it wasn't outside of expectations, but I was still encouraged despite, obviously a worse result.
Yeah, and the third quarter just started. In the very first possession, you have Tumani cutting to the basket with the ball, drawing the defense in, kicking out to a wide open Jeremy Grant who hits a 3. I mean, that's the kind of basketball you want to watch. That's the exciting basketball. You don't ISO. We were spoiled with Dame because he was so good at creating shots for himself. And then Simons kind of had to be last year like the guy that had to do everything pretty much. It felt like. But when you have stuff like that, when you have ball movement, when you have cutting, it leads to so many open shots. That's why the Spurs, even though the Spurs didn't necessarily play exciting basketball, it was beautiful basketball, moving the ball around all around the perimeter, nonstop. Like that's the kind of basketball that's enjoyable to watch. And then you tie in the like defensive intensity that the Spurs had and the way we played in the first quarter. Like that's the kind of basketball that leads to winning basketball. So I'm excited to see this season go. But like I said, the third quarter just now started, so we will see how this game continues. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we pause for the night until the end of the game where Fouad and Sean will pick up?
No, let's hope we can dig out of this hole. Looks like right now we're down 11, so still in it. Let's hope for a great third and fourth quarter, and hopefully Fouad and I bring some good news after the game.
And something I just thought about, we haven't seen Jabari at all, have we? He didn't play at all.
I was just gonna bring that
No,
up.
Chris
Well,
Murray
yeah,
got minutes
disappointed
too.
about that.
Interesting.
I was surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. We just got it looks like a steal, and here we go. Look, I'm just turning into a sports announcer here, guys. For 3. Nope, we missed. No, okay. So this is where we're gonna pause for now. For you guys, it's gonna be nothing. That's just gonna continue to the next part. I hope you guys have a good night. Sean and Fouad's gonna carry the rest of the podcast tonight. So go Blazers tonight, and we will see you here soon next week.
Go Blazers.
Rip City, we are back. This is Sean, joined here by Fouad for your post-game breakdown. The Blazers fell to the Golden State Warriors 139 to 104. We stopped in at halftime to go over what happened there. Most of the good stuff is there, unfortunately. It was a pretty brutal second half. Just off the rip, Fouad, what did you see out there?
I didn't see a lot that I liked. I'll tell you that. Yeah, honestly, it was rough. That third quarter, second half there's not a lot of positives there. I think pretty much everyone top to bottom played bad. I mean, Ant had a terrible game. Jabari Walker barely played. Jeremy Grant, I think he had like 2 threes, but other than that, he was not getting a lot of good looks. He was not making a lot of shots. Aiden felt invisible. Klingon didn't play a lot, but when he did, he didn't look great either. Scoot was pretty rough until just near the end. Yeah, so top to bottom, it was a very depressing second half.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. During our halftime breakdown, I was feeling pretty positive. We had that really good first 5 to 8 minute stretch of the game where, those are the first few minutes of the entire season. So the possibilities are endless and limitless at that point. Now we've sort of seemed to settle into the team that we were kind of expecting to see. Like you mentioned, top to bottom, there wasn't really any standout performers in the second half, in my opinion. I thought Scoot continued to be assertive in the second half, which I was happy to see. He did end with a stat line of 22, 4, and 4, which is solid. A lot of that was picked up in garbage time, but a lot of the second half, unfortunately, was garbage time. So it's hard to really to differentiate the two. So one thing I know that we were talking about during the game was a little bit about the rotation and where we saw some minutes lacking for some guys. Specifically, Jabari Walker didn't seem to get in. What did you think about that?
Sorry, what did I think about him not getting minutes, or when he finally did?
Yeah, just the rotation in general, just seeing him not as involved early on and kind of only getting in towards the tail end of the game when it seemed like sort of garbage time.
Yeah, I was very surprised by that. I thought he was one of the better players last year. I was expecting him to do well. I don't think he played a lot in preseason, and I don't think when he did play, he played fine. I don't think he played bad enough to warrant him not being in the rotation anymore. So I was very, very surprised at how little he played. It seemed like he's pretty much not in the rotation, and he only played because we were down 45 points. So yeah, I don't know what that was about. Hopefully some minutes change here and there and he gets some more minutes very soon after, but I was expecting to see him 7th, 8th man off the bench, and Yeah, I was very surprised to not see him until like even like Delano Banton was ahead of him. That was surprising. I was like, whoa. He was.
Mhm.
I think Jabari was like the 11th guy off the bench. I don't even know. What
Yeah,
were
no,
you
I think that's
thinking?
right, and I think you're I kind of the same. You know, it was disappointing. He's always been a guy who's been an under the radar contributor for us. It always felt like he would come in and give us good hustle minutes. And honestly, it kind of felt like that's maybe what we needed. We needed somebody to come in and sort of break the Warriors' run, give us 10 hard minutes where we can kind of make a little bit of a run ourselves, and just not see him really get the chance was disappointing. And frankly, it feels like a big year for him. I don't know what his role is on this team. I would love to see him wearing a Blazer uniform going forward, and not getting in early on game one of the regular season surely isn't all she wrote on that. But I was hoping that during preseason training camp and all that stuff, he would sort of have solidified some sort of role. And so I was disappointed to see that. All that being said, like I mentioned earlier, this is a little bit of what we were expecting. I don't think, you or Alex or I really thought we would win this game coming in. And so losing, while it's disappointing, isn't the worst thing in the world. It definitely feels like we're entering capture the flag territory. And I'm certainly going to be starting scouting out some of the top picks this year, because if we turn in a lot of performances like that second half, it's going to be a team that's going to struggle to get 30 wins. But, overall, Blazer basketball is back. Can't complain about that. Did any other thoughts on the second half? Anyone else stand out to you?
One really stood out. I guess I did like that Tumani was still playing pretty hard on D pretty much the whole time, even when we were down 30. His offense was not great. I think he badly missed a couple threes, but I still saw some hustle there. He grabbed a couple boards. He's playing good D, so I guess shout out for that. And I think Rupert had like one or two possessions that I thought he played pretty like he hustled and he attacked the basket, but uh yeah, I thought he was pretty invisible for most of the rest of the game. Um but yeah, literally the only two bright spots I can think of at all were those two in the second half. And then I guess yeah, those couple minutes of Scoot against like the deep bench were not terrible either, but man, that was like I'm like grasping for straws to talk about something positive here.
No, I'm right with you.
I think
I totally agree. Go ahead.
I think the preseason, like even though we try to tell ourselves that it's just preseason and not to put a lot of weight into it, but I think subconsciously, like we saw the team playing well and we kind of expected or at least hoped it would be a little bit better than it was tonight. Um, so I think that kind of set us up for an even bigger disappointment because we were expecting more than we would have if if we didn't see that preseason and we were just basing off last year. But yeah.
Yeah, and those first 5 minutes of the game really tricked me.
Yeah.
I all of a sudden was convincing myself we're improved on defense, we're gonna be a fast break team, and then the Warriors kind of figured it out, settled in, played their game, started hitting shots, and we got away from what we were doing that was working. And so yeah, not a lot of positives to take. I'll end on one last thing I wanted to touch on. In the first game of every season, obviously you want to win, but what I was really looking for here is how who made a big jump and how did the new guys fit in. And one guy I wanted to touch on, who I think is important to touch on, is Donovan Clingan. Um, I was a little disappointed with what I saw. It wasn't terrible. He definitely looks like he's an NBA player, but he certainly didn't take over the game. His stat line, I think, was 2 points, 2 rebounds. He had a steal and a block, so pretty solid on the defensive end, but felt invisible out there. And, this is a 7'3" guy. It's hard to be invisible when you're that big, but he didn't do anything much of note to me, and I was hoping to see him kind of pop off in garbage time. Do you have any thoughts on his play today?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. He's invisible for most of the game. I think at least in the first half, his presence felt a little bit more felt on the defensive end. Um, I think he was like just a big body in the paint, but then I don't know why it wasn't like that. It didn't feel like that in the second half. Maybe because the score was like so like bad that it didn't matter. But yeah, he felt a lot more invisible. I think I even noticed like one or two possessions where he kind of lost his man, and I think it was a smaller man, so it's probably like he had a mismatch anyways, but he let a couple guys blow by him. But yeah, it was not what we were expecting from him. I thought he had again going back to preseason, he had a good preseason. He was playing amazing defense, so I was expecting to see some of that here. And again, he didn't play bad defensively at all, but he was just fine there. And then he was not great on offense. He again, invisible is the word. Like he just didn't do anything. Um, yeah, so I agree with you pretty much. Like I expected more out of him. He is a rookie. It's his first career game, so it's like not a red flag at all or anything like that. It's just it would have been a bonus to see something nice.
Totally agree. Like you mentioned, first game of the year, we're gonna preach patience here, and it's gonna be a long season in many respects. So I'm gonna do my best to give time to these guys. Even things like Jabari Walker, I'm hoping that the rotation will settle itself out, and hopefully he'll be able to work himself in there. I think there is a contributor in him that can fit a very specific role. And secondly, credit to the Warriors, man. They made great adjustments. They started hitting shots. Steph Curry did Steph Curry things. I think at the halftime breakdown, he was something like 1 of 7. End of the game, he finishes 4 of 10 with 17, 10, and 9. So almost a triple double. So, that's a good team that, they'll be potential playoff team. I don't know, maybe on the border. It could be better given Steph, you never know with him, but it's a team we're a little bit behind in the rebuild, and that's fine. And that's kind of what we're expecting. Anyways,
You're
Fawad, do you have any
100%.
final thoughts?
Yeah, you're 100% right. Warriors played really good in the second half, I think. Their ball movement was crazy. They were getting a lot of good looks that way. Their defense was also great. Uh, So yeah, like we're playing against pretty much, if not a playoff team, then like a playoff caliber team because they can definitely hang in there with any playoff team. So yeah, like it's not the end of the world that a young team like us lost to them, even if it was pretty bad. One quick thing, speaking of the Warriors and how good some of their offense was. Shout out to Terry Stotts. It was his first game as an assistant coach for the Warriors back in
Yep.
Moda Center. So shout out to him. I loved him when he was here with us. So it was good to see him back.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I miss Terry, and on a night where Dame goes crazy, it's definitely a little bit nostalgic. But hey, this is a new chapter. This is a new team. We definitely have a new identity. It looks like going forward, I'm hoping what we settle into is that fast break team that's
Mhm.
strong on the defensive end. The announcers were talking about it, and I thought they put it well, where our 3-point shooting isn't where it needs to be. I think we were something like, what is it, 8 for 34, so not good enough. And we have length. So it's totally different than the Blazer teams of old, where we're putting out 3-guard lineups, bombing threes, those Terry Stotts offenses that were so fun to watch. This is a new team, and it's going to take some adjustment and some time. But I thought that the new guys, they did well in their role. I was really encouraged by what we saw out of Denny with 15, 7, and 2 steals, 2 blocks. I thought there was a lot to feel good about with him. And, hopefully Klingon is able to continue to grow, like you mentioned, first game in the season. But knowing that he's in the rotation and he's going to be getting minutes this year is good to see. I'm going to love to see him out on the court. And I know he's going to have some monster 5-block stat lines. So while it was a disappointing second half, I am feeling positive about the direction of the Blazers. It felt like last year they were a little bit lost, and this year it at least seems we're moving somewhere. Whether that's going to be good or bad, I don't know yet, but it seems like everyone's, moving in the same direction, so I'm encouraged by that.
Yeah, I guess it was a little bit more encouraging than some of the games last year. I'll give you that. When
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, oh, go ahead.
sorry, no, you go first.
I was gonna say, like you mentioned earlier, I'm just grasping for straws, man. That was a tough second half.
Yeah, man, it was brutal. But yeah, I was gonna say there's a lot of people on social media that I saw talking about how like they've given up on Scoot again. I think we'll probably talk about this more in depth maybe next week when we have a little bit more games to to judge him on. But right after this first game, do you have any thoughts about how you feel about Scoot long term? Has your mind changed at all?
I wouldn't say it changed. I felt like, so if you think about last year's Scoot, the start of the season was really terrible. End of the season was really strong. This felt like right in between. When he first came on the floor, he looked out of control. I think he almost had a turnover on his first possession, really touch of the basketball. And then he settled in and made some nice plays. He had 4 assists, and I think that number could have been a lot higher. He hit a lot of guys that were open for three, and they just weren't going down, but it looked like the right pass. I don't know. There's no part of me that believes Scoot is not an NBA level player or even an NBA level starter. I still think he's a starter. Will he be a plus starter? Will he be an all-star? That I still don't know, but regardless of whether it was in garbage time or whatever, seeing him score 22, seeing him be a little bit more assertive, all those things I can feel good about, and I'm not leaving this game going, wow, Scoot's terrible. I'm leaving it thinking, wow, this Blazer team's maybe not so great, and the Warriors are outclassed us a little bit. How about you? How'd you feel?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think one game is not enough to change my mind based on what it was like, let's say, a week ago. Uh, Obviously, for most of the game, he wasn't playing great. There were a couple small things that I liked that I think you already touched on. But long term, yeah, I think it's too soon. Obviously, overall, he's been disappointing relative to his draft expectations. But jury is still out, in my opinion. Let's talk at like 10 games in. If we're still not seeing any improvement from last year, then maybe that's more of a red flag. But right now, I'm not on board with everyone who's like, it's over. He's a bust. Things like that.
Yeah, I'm right in the middle there, and to that point, I would say I don't know that he'll develop into some transcendent number one option on a team. I'm not really seeing that either, unfortunately. And given his draft status, that's the hope. It can certainly happen, but the early signs have been not great for that. But if he settles in and is a solid to above average starting point guard, I'm going to feel okay with that. And giving up the number 3 pick for that, obviously you want more, but in 2 years, we're not going to be worried about where he was drafted. We're going to be worried about how he fits around our other guys. And I think he's someone that can contribute in a Blazer jersey for a long time. So a lot to be hopeful for there. Anyways, Fawad, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. Hopefully the next game's a little bit better.
Yep, that's the hope. Well, like you said, better games ahead, and we will be back next Tuesday, I believe, for another episode. Thanks for listening. Go Blazers.